Hey everyone, this is Eric coming from Kansas again. I'm going to talk about another component of my of our system here, the backup power system. I'm going to talk about this inverter charger that we installed with our system. That's been very good to us since we put it in almost 3 years ago. And I also wanted to make it because uh, searching on YouTube and the internet, there's very little information on these relative to magnums and outbacks and names inverters, and I feel kind of like it's been neglected. I don't know how many of these Samlex have sold, but compared to those inverters, as far as features within the inverter, it doesn't have all the connectivity, Wi-Fi, and internet and all that jazz. But as far as the inverter itself, it's on the same level as those inverters, and I feel it. There's not enough talked about it on the internet, and I wanted to do some justice today. So here we go. I'm gonna switch cameras and we'll get going. So the inverter charger I chose for my system here is Samlex Power, 4,000 watt, 24 volt Evo series of their inverter chargers. It's the Evo 4024, what the model designation, I guess. And it's a 24 volt DC, as I said, and then it only outputs 120 volts. It's not a split phase 240 volt inverter. There's not many of these out there that are this large or this much output. That only output 120 volts. I think the Outback inverters, not the Radiant series, but the Outback, the older Outback ones that are smaller and black. The Radiant is like just a big electrical box, but anyway, the Outback ones do output 120 volts also. And if you want split phase, you can parallel two of them together. But I don't think Samlex touts that they have that capability yet with these. Maybe they will someday, but 120 volts is good for me. And the other reason I chose 120 volt is just I can work with 240 volt. Can power some stuff, but I don't even have batteries could probably handle a 240 volt load for a little bit, for a little while. But honestly, most of what I'm doing is 120 volts, and you can still power quite a bit of stuff with 120 volts. So that's what I chose. And the other thing with 120 volt inverters is you don't have to worry about having an imbalance in one of your split phases. So a split phase inverter, you got to worry about if you have just a few lights going on one side of the 120 volts and a vacuum cleaner on another circuit going, or some other heavy loads on one side, there could be an issue there. But so I didn't want to worry about that. I just wanted to make it more simple. These inverters are not they're not as fancy as the magnums, I would say, in terms of Wi-Fi connectivity and all that other jazz, and being integrated with their own. Samlex doesn't have all the other charge controllers, and they have some, but they don't have any nice MPPT ones that Outback does and Magnum does, and they don't have a lot of their add-ons for these kind of inverters that the Samlex that the Magnums do. So the Samlex doesn't have that, whereas the Magnums and Outbacks, other brands, do. But I don't need this inverter connected to the internet to be able to see what's going on with it. I'm more of a simple manual kind of a person. That's just what I chose to go with. Plus, I already had one of these TriStar MPPT 60 charge controllers, and it's been working great. I've had it over 10 years. I bought this other one last year so I could get some more solar input, but so I already had some components already, and just wanted to work with what I already got. So that's why I chose to go with that one, at least for the most part. And but in terms of the inverter charger itself, it's got a lot of the same features and same capabilities as Magnums and Outbacks and other brands out there. To me, it's on the same quality level as those. I mean, it is UL 1741 approved. It's 458. It's got the circuit boards are all cladded in the epoxy or whatever you want to call it. So it's you can have it in a marine environment too. So to me it's a just same on par with the same quality as the Magnums and Outbacks and other brands. So I was pretty pleased with that those certifications as well. The other reason I chose it is because I was looking at Outbacks and Magnums, but these have 2 AC inputs, whereas I know the Outback does not have, the older Outbacks do not have 2 AC inputs, only 1, and the Magnums I don't think they have 2 either. But this has 2 AC inputs. This is all AC side stuff right here. If you can see this, apologies about that. So this guy right here is your AC output. Yeah, AC output goes into my AC output box here. I got a couple of breakers on that one before it goes into all that jazz over there I'll talk about later. So this is your AC output. Then it's got a generator input, and here's your grid AC input back here. This conduit right here. So I'll go around here so you can see it better. See all 3 of them there. That's another big reason why I chose this, so I didn't have to fumble around with other equipment to get to where I could have a generator and a grid power connected to it, and I didn't have to manipulate wires and move plugs around and things like that. So I really like that about this inverter. Some of the features about this inverter charger is you can go to like the Aldi store and look up. There's 4 different variants. There's a 2212, which is a 12 volt 2200 watt inverter. There's a 3012 3000 watt 12 volt inverter. There's a 2200 watt 24 volt inverter, and then there's the 4024, which is this one. So this one has let's see, 4000 watt output. In a previous video I was talking about 200% output for several minutes. I misspoke there. So it can do 110% output for 30 minutes, 120% output, which is 4800 volts for 5 minutes, 140% output for 30 seconds, and 150% output for 5 seconds. So it can handle some pretty large surges. So 150% of this is 6,000 watts. They can handle that for 5 seconds, which is not anything to laugh about. Inverter efficiency max is 94%. Oh yeah, it's got it's also got a transfer switch in there, obviously, like all inverter chargers do. It's a 70 amp dual pole transfer switch, so it's dual pole. It's got 2 35 amp transfer switches in it, and they're mechanically tied together, so they trip at the same time. Like most inverter chargers, or most of them like this one, you can have it in inverting mode, where it's just pulling from the batteries. It prioritizes battery use versus other uses, even though there's grid and a generator power plugged in. So even if both the generator are going and the grid power is on, this thing will still invert, and then if the battery get too low, it'll start pulling from one of those, and you can prioritize it pulling from the grid or the generator, depending on what you want to do there. Let's see here. It's got maximum AC input current. Yeah. Well, okay. maximum DC. Oh, okay. This is for the battery charger. If you're in the battery charging mode, the maximum AC input energy into the battery charger is 30 amps, but that's not the maximum AC input into this whole inverter charger here, because it's got to bypass around that and power the loads that it's connected to. So it's actually I think you're supposed to have an 80 amp breaker on it, but I've got a 60. That's the biggest I could find at Home Depot. You can get bigger ones, but you had to mail order them and stuff. But yeah, there you go, 60 amp breaker for that's the power supply, the grid power supply to it. So you can be charging with 30 amps of power into the battery charger on the AC side. On DC, the max DC amps that it can put in the batteries is 110 amps. So that's, let's see, that's almost 3,000 watts. It's like 2,700 or something like that, I think, which is quite a bit. I've never charged with batteries with that much. Max I've done is 40 amps. That's the default setting. And actually now I have it set pretty low, because if it trips on, I don't want it to use a lot of grid power. I want it to wait for solar to come in while it powers the loads it's connected to. Let's see here. Another interesting thing that I don't use, but I might at some point, is it's got an external DC charging connections here. It's kind of like a charge controller, but to me it still needs to be a regulated voltage. So what I could do is take these charge controllers, the output of these, and instead of connecting them in this DC disconnect box, I can connect them up to these two connections. And what it'll do is this inverter charger will sense power coming into there, and if you have the battery charger, the internal charger that would pull from grid power to charge the batteries, if you have that set at 40 amps, but you have 30 amps coming from the sun or from wind, whatever you have providing power to these charge controllers. If 30 amps is coming from there, and you have this set at 40 amp to charge the batteries, it will only pull 10 amps from the grid, and the other 30 that make up the 40 to charge the batteries, it will take from the sun. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you have this set at 40 amp charging rate on the batteries, it'll pull 30 from the sun or from wind, and only 10 from the grid. So it won't. So instead of charging 40 plus 30 and 70 amps of the batteries, it'll only go up to the 40 amps that you want it to go up to. So that's another feature about this that I don't use, but it could be pretty handy for some people if they another option of minimizing grid power. So that's what those are. Put these back on here, and then I'll go to my list here of what else I want to talk about on this thing. Let's see here. Yeah, 2 AC inputs, 70 amp charger, 70 amp transfer switch. Samlex does have software updates occasionally for these, but you need the Evo remote control, which I'll do another video on. You can upload software updates to that remote control that then controls this guy. I've got it located upstairs, so I don't have to come down here all the time to look at it. But that, yeah, I'll just show you where that connects. That remote connects. Yeah, you can kind of see some connections up there, maybe. That's hard to see. It's one of these wires. Actually, that's the temp sensor. This inverter charger does come with a temp sensor, if you want to do that. I don't use mine because I got lithiums and I don't need to worry about that really. Plus they're down in the basement, and it's always like 65, 70 degrees down here, so that's a perfect environment for them. Yeah, here's the remote wire, and it runs up here and then goes upstairs. So anyway, that's what that is. Let me see here. Software updates. Oh yeah, there is a new remote control also that they've created. I don't have it yet, but it's got more lines on. I'll talk about that later. But oh yeah, the idle power on this. Idle power, when this is not powering anything at all, it will just when this is the power output that it's putting out to our house right now, about 100 watts. And this is the voltage. And this is the AC amps that it's putting out right now. So this is not what it's consuming from the batteries. This is what the inverter charger is putting out. So from the battery, it's probably pulling on maybe 140, 150 watts. It's not very efficient at these lower power levels. That, like I said, I don't have that many batteries. It's only 7.5 kilowatt hours of capacity, really 6 3/4 usable, essentially. But anyway, it's in the summertime or in late spring, I'll have a lot more fridges on and a lot other stuff that's powered on this, and it'll be a little more efficient. So anyway, so the idle power is like 30 or 35 to 40 watts if it's not powering anything. If this number is 0, and so that's not that bad considering it's a 4,000 watt inverter. To me, I think I've seen some of the Ames inverters out there. I think the Ames 6,000 watt one is maybe 80 watts or something like that. So I consider that to be pretty good idle power consumption. So anyway, hope that helps out. It comes with a nice big manual, nice and thick. Lots of stuff in here about battery charging, setting it up, physically mounting it. It's 65 pounds. It's not light. It took 2 people to mount this up here. So once you get it mounted, you don't really want to move it, obviously. It's kind of a pain, but that's what these low frequency inverters with these huge transformers in them are like. They're those transformers, a lot of these things that handle the heavy inductive loading starts, and if you want to power lots of stuff in your house and not have your inverter beep at you and trip off, this is what you need. You can see a little damage here. I got this at a pretty good price. I got it for $1,000. Some places they retail for up to $1,800. You can find them less in some places, but anyway, this little tab was damaged on each side. I just kind of bent it back and haven't had any problems with this thing. It's been rock solid. Just powerhouse for this system, and I've loved it. And it's been running for. I bought it in October 2017, and I got it up and running in April of 2018. So it's been almost 3 years that this thing has been running, not constantly, but almost on all the time. And yeah, no problems with it at all. It's just been fantastic, and recommend it if you want to, more low tech, but still got a lot of features and a lot of certifications behind it. Samlex did a pretty darn good job with this inverter, and I would recommend it if you don't want to go with an Outback or a Magnum or the cheaper Ames ones or things like that. It's been great, and I would recommend it. And hope that helps. Add some more options to your list if you're looking at these, and that's all for now.